Alright, welcome everyone. In this video I want to talk about a checklist of mine called Feynman's Checklist. Over the course of the last few years I've been keeping track of a list of albums that I plan to listen to. They're either direct recommendations from friends or albums that I just stumbled upon and I found looked interesting. They're sorted by subgenre mainly. Here I have a category specifically for albums of 2024 that I plan to listen to. Here are albums from post, sludge, punk genre, and also stoner. I have drone, gothic doom metal. You kind of get the idea. By periodically listening to albums from my checklist, I've come across albums that now rank among my favorites of all time. Now I want to start a video series where I pick a random album from my checklist and give it a listen. Of course, my opinion of the album might change on multiple listens, so this shouldn't be seen as a definitive review. Instead, it's more a look at my first impressions. I might revisit these in the future to give a more thorough evaluation, but for now, I just plan to have a bit of fun in exploring some of these albums. So, as you see, the list is 179 entries long. Now some of these entries are the titles of the subgenre, but let's just say there are 179 albums here. And now let's pick a random number between 1 and 175. Let's spin the wheel. Okay, our result is 93. Now let's look at which album is number 93. It is the Meads of Asphodel, the Excommunication of Christ. Now, this is on Metal Storm. The style is experimental black metal, and the release date is 2001. It's relatively few votes, only 24. 13 tracks, maybe it's long, but the songs could also be rather short. Alright, let's give it a listen.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti.
Starting with an atmospheric intro track of the ominous ringing of church bells, a Latin liturgy, and the moaning of a choir, the Meads of Asphodel's debut album, The Excommunication of Christ, immediately establishes a vibe soaked in religious theme. As sounds of rain and thunder trickle in, the menacing utterances of Domini, meaning the Lord, and Satana, meaning Satan, can be heard.
Ecce crux Domini, fugi demonium.
After the intro, the first proper song, called Angel Whore, enters with some lo-fi black metal of heavily distorted, tremolo-picked guitar playing and the aggressive growl of the vocalist. In the background, one can hear some sweet keyboard melodies, which nicely contrast the more hard-hitting percussion. It took only about 2 minutes until I realized why their genre label on Metal Storm is experimental black metal. Kind of harpsichord-like instrument comes in, playing an upbeat, catchy tune, adding an unexpected, experimental type of dimension to this otherwise pretty straightforward, lo-fi black metal sound. Through the transition of organ synths, the song fades into The Watchers of Catalhyuk, the second main song on the album, which once again displays a satisfying juxtaposition between melodic keyboards and the heavy, extreme metal riffs. Hearing this type of style, blending atmospheric synths with harsher black metal, reminds me of Falkenbach's or Summoning's approach. There are also a lot of instances here of oriental sounds, such as in the introductory flute playing of Agrat Bat Mala, that remind me of Melakesh. Overall, I appreciate the rugged, raw sound of the production, and together with the rough, blackened vocals, it also gives me a similar feeling as in Rotting Christ's classic Thy Mighty Contract album. I enjoy the singing here the most when it's a mixture of various vocal styles, switching between whispered rasps, guttural growls, and even at times backed by operatic choirs. But sometimes the vocals actually distract from the instrumentation, like on the songs Weeping Tears of Angel Light and Assault and Battery, in which the harsh growls sound very out of place within the light electronic melodies. Also, the back and forth growl and raspy singing on Bene Ha Elohim sounds pretty silly. It might be a conscious choice to sound avant-garde, but I just don't like it when the vocals take me out of the music. Overall, the mix of oriental melody, raw black metal, and experimentation is very similar to Psy, the Japanese band. The variety in guitar melodies and entrancing keyboard playing are really great throughout the album. The song Pale Dread Hunger provides a very groovy opening riff, and also ends in an interesting mix of flutes and bells. And some brief guitar solos even give an 80s hard rock type of vibe. But as I come to the later songs on the album, a lot of the initial surprise of the experimental bits kind of wears off, and many of the songs begin to sound rather similar. Some growls, some keyboard playing, some black metal riffing. That's all the last two tracks really boil down to. Of course, there are still some highlights that shake things up, like the short ambient tracks, the disembodied voices of Melchizedek, and Jezebel and the Philistines, with its audio samples of erotic moaning as the instruments build an unnerving ambience with instances of something like electronic pop. But all in all, the album kind of feels as if it drags on for just a bit too long. In conclusion, the Meads of Asphodel spice up their black metal with the inclusion of lots of catchy moments among the aggressive riffing. The vocals are okay, but sometimes distract from the mood established by the instruments. In the end, the experimental instrumentation is pretty neat, and the keyboard playing is definitely the largest contributing factor for the quality and enjoyment of this album. That concludes the review of my initial thoughts when listening to this album. I hope that you enjoyed this overview, and let me know if you want to hear more of this type of review. Alright, until we meet again, stay metal.